Sergeant John Klafka. He is going to be doing our presentation today. He is currently assigned as the Administrative Sergeant for the Criminal Investigations Bureau to the Adult Special Crime Section of the Harris County Sheriff's Office. This section is responsible for the investigation of domestic violence and adult sex crimes. And as Gabby said, we see many victims here at Shield Bearer. Take a look at last year's numbers. Sergeant Klafka spent almost 10 years as a patrol deputy, with his last 6 years as a field training officer. After leaving patrol, he was assigned as an investigator to the Child Abuse Unit. Following his promotion to sergeant, he was transferred to the Internal Affairs Division. After leaving Internal Affairs, he was assigned to the Crime Victim Assistance Unit and later to the Domestic Violence Unit, which are in the Adult Special Crime Section. While assigned to the Crime Victim Assistance Unit, Sergeant Klafka was instrumental in implementing the Safe Surrender Program and the Sheriff's Mobile Advocacy Response Team, also called SMART. Sergeant Klafka helped develop and grow the unit by reaching out to many of the nonprofit groups to build stronger working relationships and attending many public events to help raise awareness of domestic violence and advocacy for crime victims. During his career, Sergeant Klafka has received 3 commendations, 2 life-saving awards, and a unit citation. Sergeant Klafka holds a Master Peace Officer license and has been employed with the Harris County Sheriff's Office since January 2021. So I would like to welcome Sergeant Klafka.
Morning. My name is John Klafka. As Matt said, I'm with the Sheriff's Office. I'm currently assigned as the Bureau Administrative Sergeant for the Criminal Investigations Bureau. The big title on me is not too much paperwork. So this little presentation is about sexual assault awareness. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It's also Child Abuse Awareness Month. It's also Autism Awareness Month, and there's probably some more months that I'm not familiar with. But it's a busy month for a lot of people. So sexual assault is it's not a fun topic. It's not an easy topic that people want to talk about. A lot of people just try to avoid it. So what happens whenever sexual assault incident occurs? This is kind of the flow chart of how the process works. So victim makes an outcry. They either go to a counseling center, a hospital, a friend, a relative, someone they feel they can trust. From there, they may come to us, they may not. They may never report it to us. If they do report it to us, we're contacted. A deputy will come out, they'll take a report. They'll get all the details. Who, what, when, where, why, how, and put all that in a report. Victim may or may not go to a hospital and have a sexual assault examination performed on her or him. And this is where a lot of people decide they don't want to participate in this investigation, this criminal investigation, because this sexual assault examination is very intrusive and very invasive. It's not a fun thing for anyone. So the report gets referred to investigations. And this is the other bad part. We don't have very many investigators. We've got a lot of these. So that report is going to wait. And then once an investigator finally gets it, and they reach out to the victim, a lot of times that person is upset that it took so long for us to get in touch with them. They're angry, and they don't want to have anything to do with us. A lot of times, this is where our victim advocates come into play, because they will sometimes reach out much sooner. And at least there's a dialogue between the victim and the advocate, and the investigators or supervisors. And depending on the case, if it's a very daunting, rough case, it could get prioritized higher and get worked a little bit sooner. So once the investigator finally starts working on the case, there's a lot of information to pull. There's a lot of medical records. These cases, even if it's say it's a call out, an investigator sent directly to the scene because of it could be a family violence incident, very brutal. The victim almost died. So we're there to investigate the whole part of it, family violence and the sexual assault. We're there talking to the victim directly, either at their house or at the hospital, wherever we need to go. We get their statement, we get everything that we need right then. But now we're waiting on the mercy of the doctors and the hospitals. We've got to pull all those medical records and all that evidence that we have to go through, gather up, and then write up in the report what it all means. Then we get to go meet, once all that's done, we get to go meet with the district attorney's office and present all of this evidence to the DA. And if the DA agrees, we get to file the charge on the person, and it goes on to court. A warrant is issued, and they go to jail. This process, depending on the time frame, could take a couple of years. Sometimes they go faster. Sometimes they're just within a few months. It depends on the backlog of the hospital or the medical examiner's office, whoever we have that needs to test that DNA. We're waiting on their results. If it's the ME's office, it's a county entity, but they work also for all these other agencies within Harris County that don't have their own forensic lab. Houston Police has their own lab, so they get to process their own evidence. But because they're a county agency, that's who we have to use in these offices. But all this evidence is very important to the case. We have to have it. We can't, if we misstep, if we cut corners, then we just did that victim a great disservice because that case is about put in jeopardy. It could be dismissed. We've got to make sure that we do document everything, that everything's in order, so we can get this charge filed, get this person in jail, and held accountable for it. What is sexual assault? An act in which one intentionally sexually touches, penetrates another person without that person's explicit consent or coerces or physically forces a person to engage in a sexual act against their will. With sexual assault, there has to be penetration. Sexual organ, anus, or the mouth. There is a fairly new law on the books now. It's called indecent assault, and that's now where groping over the clothing is now illegal. It was always illegal. It was just assault, and that without a sexual nature or sexual component. So sexual assault is a second-degree felony. It's punished by 2 to 20 years in prison. They have a fine not to exceed $10,000. Aggravated sexual assault, same as above, but includes threats to cause harm, or the person displays or uses a deadly weapon. That was a first-degree felony. They could receive life or no more than 99 years or less than 5 years, and possibly a $10,000 fine. So whenever somebody is fined in court, all these fines, these court costs, and everything that people have to pay, on the criminal side, this goes into the Texas Crime Victims Compensation. That money is used to help victims of crime, certain qualifying crimes, to pay for immediate needs. They could pay for counseling. It could pay for a move to a new location. If the person was raped at their apartment complex, this could help them move and avoid extra out-of-pocket expenses. On homicides, they'll pay up to $5,000 for a funeral. Sometimes we've had our advocates make contact with the funeral home, and they will accept the CDC $5,000 payment as payment in full, not charge anything extra to the family. So all of these fines really do go back and help all of our victims. Sexual assault also includes a person that's not consented, where they're unable to physically resist. They could be unconscious. They have a mental disease or defect. They don't know what's going on, so they can't fully consent to the act. They have not consented, they're unaware that this act is occurring. Actor intentionally impairs a person's power to apprise or control the actor's conduct, basically putting a drug in a drink or administering it some other way that makes them not coherent, so they understand what's going on. The actor compels the person to threaten, to coerce. It could even be just begging, just coercing, come on, you don't want to, let's do this. That's still sexual assault. We have myths or facts. They're committed by a male stranger. The weapon. Female victim reacts hysterically. Great deal of physical violence takes place on a bad side of town. Perpetuated by someone of low socioeconomic status, somebody that is a poor person. Perpetrated against the victim who is young and attractive. That victim reports the crime immediately. They describe the suspect with a 100% accuracy. Always perpetuated by a man against a woman, male against a female. Are these true or false, do you think? False. They're all myths. Most are perpetuated by someone known to the victim. Someone that this person knows and trusts. Men without a weapon, physical violence, or signs of injury. Very few report to law enforcement. They do, there's a delay. Days, weeks, or months, sometimes even years. So we can't. Some factors that limit perceived credibility are young, homeless, runaway. Suspects often do not fit a stereotype of a rapist. Every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. Every 9 minutes, that victim is a child. I think these are myths or facts.
Facts.
Sad.
We got a few stats. We got some state and our own Harris County stats. Vast majority of rape victims, nearly 80%, know the person who raped them. Estimated 91% of all rapes go unreported. Out of all the ones that are in our caseload at the office, double, triple what we could have. Almost 70% of rape victims were not physically injured as a result of their assault. Back in 1992, there was a girl in Italy who was going out for her first driving instructing course. The instructor was a 45-year-old married male. Drove her out to a urban area, pulled her out of the car, got one pant leg off, forcefully raped her. She's 18 years old. Got her back in the car, threatened her life, You tell anybody, I'll kill you. Made her drive back to town. She tells her parents what happened. They go to the police. They do their investigation. Charges get filed on him. He goes to jail. He appeals his sentence. And it goes all the way to the Italian Supreme Court, where ultimately it's overturned and he's released. Wow. The Chief Justice on the court said that because her jeans were so tight, she had to have help to get them off. Therefore, she consented.
Oh, wow.
And after that, of course, there were big protests. It made it over here to the States, and that's how Denim Day was born. A lot of women went to work the next few weeks in Italy wearing jeans and protest. That eventually made its way over here to the States. So this year, April 27th, it's always the last Wednesday of the month of April. It's Denim Day. In remembrance and to help raise awareness. She was not really injured. You know, she fought, she struggled, but she had no injuries on her. These are some of the state stats. People arrested for rape, sexual assault by their ages. We've got 65 plus years. There were 46 of them. This was for the year 2020. And it's also male and female. 60 to 64, there were 36 people. Those were all males. 55 to 59, there were 48 males.
This is Harris County?
No, the state.
State of
State
Texas.
of Texas. Now, the largest is 20 to 24 girls, 282 males. Females. No, sorry, I had to write males. Males arrested, 282 between the ages of 20 and 24. 10 to 14 years, there was 135. So it's a lot like family violence. It affects everyone. There's no race. There's no economic status. There's no gender, religion, anybody.
That's just arrested, that doesn't necessarily mean convicted.
Correct. These are our stats from the sheriff's office. In 2020, we had 19 aggravated sexual assaults. We had 561 sexual assaults, 197 indecent exposures, and 51 indecent assaults. That's the one where you're being groped, touched. 2021, things went up a little bit. We had 26 aggravated sexual assaults, 614 sexual assaults, 248 indecent exposures, and 98 indecent assaults. And so far this year, through February, we've had no aggravated sexual assaults. We've had 63 sexual assaults, 53 indecent exposures, and 12 indecent assaults. That's all throughout Harris County. The unincorporated parts of Harris County does not include the city of Houston. This is the only things that we investigate. We get a lot of calls from the constables also that we investigate.
So the indecent exposure, that's somebody who walking on the street naked that be considered. Do they actually get arrested in Harris County, or did that walk around?
Oh, they can be arrested.
Okay,
We still have to call the DA first.
okay.
We have to call everything. You know, I can put this crime right in front of me. I still have to call the DA.
Yeah, because I was asking, I've actually seen the situation where the police were around and like they went into talking like me and I, like nothing was going on. I was confused.
Yes. Here.
Oh, yeah.
Let's try to look up that, see what happened to know more about it. So this is a slide that I use in the family violence presentation. I think it still has fits. This is could be anybody. Friends, family, next door neighbor. Nice couple, look happy, very pleasant to be around. But you never truly know them. Or she lived. This sexual assault and family violence, a lot of times interact with each other. And you never know what someone is going through until you're in their shoes. A lot of times, just like in sexual assault, family violence goes on. Also tied into sexual assault is human trafficking. Now, there is a difference between human trafficking and human smuggling. Does anybody know the difference?
Yes. Smuggling is when you bring it across the border, traffic is where you're selling them.
Right, correct. So if you're paying somebody to get you across the border into the United States, you're being smuggled. Now, if that person decides to, in the midst of smuggling you, decides to keep you and put you in a sexual business or a housekeeping business, hospitality business, and forces you to work, that's human trafficking. Human trafficking doesn't necessarily mean it's only about sex. It could be work, other work. Some victim indicators, there are habitual runaways, missing or unexplained absences from schools. A lot of times this happens with younger girls. Large amount of money or unexplained cell phones, branding or tattoos. Scars or bruises they can't explain. They avoid eye contact. Drug and alcohol usage. Inappropriate or provocative photos. Checking the hotels with older males and females. Referring to her boyfriend or referring to the male as boyfriend or daddy. Here's malnourished. Lacking official identification documents. A lot of times these people they're brought over here and they're used for things that nobody should be forced to do. But they get forced into this because sometimes they don't know how to get out.
Well, I would say it's not just coming over border, right? I mean,
Right.
Kids are groomed. So they suddenly have honestly, that's a different grooming that process.
A lot of runaways, a lot of our human trafficking are U.S. citizens.
That's right.
They're runaways from another state. These people know how to pick them out. They'll, like she said, they'll bring them, they'll put them on a van or something. They'll send them to another state. They have no idea where they're at. They don't know anybody. They don't know what to do. They're just stuck.
Isn't Texas one of the, or Houston on the top? You said that.
It is.
It is. I-10 Florida.
I-10, got 59. Sometimes Houston refers to as the hub. Age prostitution started. We've got under 18, there were 44%. 18 to 20, there's 22%. 21 and older, there's 35%. So a lot of these girls are high schoolers. So these are some of our community resources that we use at the Sheriff's Office. We are not what is called a rec services agency. We don't offer services out of our office. We depend on people like Shieldbearer, like NAM, Northwest Assistance Ministries, for shelter, the bridge over triple water for shelter and emergency housing. We work with all these agencies. We refer, what do you think we said here? Shieldbearer. Yeah, quite a few now. You know, Shieldbearer is one of the better ones because they work on a sliding scale. Some of the other counseling services entities that are around here, they don't do that.
What do you mean by that?
What they can afford. You know, so if the service costs $150, they say I've got $5, then okay, give me $5. That's just an example. So anywhere across the state, you've got, by law, there is a victim assistance person with the county, whichever county you may fall in. That person is there to help with resources. So if you're in a small county, somewhere way out west, there's still going to be resources. They may not have them in that county, but there's a person there with the county or the sheriff's office that can get help to you.
Are those the only ones that you work with? Do you?
No, there's a lot more. This is just, whenever I build these programs, I build it for the area that we're in. So just some of the ones that are close to this area here. Northwest Assistance Ministries, they're not that far away, but this would be outside of their area, but they're one of the bigger ones that most people know about. Cypress Assistance Ministries, just right up the road here. Gilbert Family Ties, they're way out in Waller. They do a lot of counseling also and help with shelters. The district or county attorney's office, Texas Association Against Sexual Assault, TASA, they've got a lot of helpful information on their website. And RAIN, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. They've also got a lot of information. They're always trying to put a state agency and a national agency on these slides, just so everybody can see what different entities provide, some of the different stats for the nation versus the state. And just anything to get more information to help out. These are the victim advocates and the sergeant over the criminal investigation. I'm in the Crime Victim Assistance Unit at the Harris County Sheriff's Office. Our crime victim liaison is Deputy Oscar Cisneros. He does a lot with U visas and gun surrender and trainings within our department. Anybody ever heard of U visa? It's a federal program that's intended to help illegal aliens in these states that have been victims of a qualifying crime. So family violence, assault, robbery, homicides, things of that nature. If they're a victim, and if they cooperate with law enforcement and the prosecution, they can apply for a U visa. All we do is we certify saying that this person is a victim of a qualifying crime, they are cooperating, we sign off on it, we send it up to the feds. Feds will look at it and they have the authority to approve or deny. What this does is if they're approved, they're allowed to live and work in the states legally for a couple of years while their case is pending. And this program was intended to help victims come to us and not just be a victim and continue to be taken advantage of just because they're not here legally. So we help everybody regardless of their status. So we want to make sure that if you're a victim of a crime, we're going to take care of you. The gun surrender program is something that started out of the 280th District Court. It's also known as a protective order court. The state of Texas, if you have a protective order filed against you, you cannot own or possess firearm or ammunition. So this program gives you the ability to cooperate with law and give us your gun. We'll hold it for the duration of that protective order. Once that protective order is expired or lifted, if you are legally able to possess a firearm again, get your gun back. We don't keep it, we don't destroy it, we give it back. It's just a tool to help this person comply with state law. Their other option is they can sell it. That's the tool. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a statute of limitations on it? Like if a victim repressed the memory?
There is, you kind of caught me off guard.
Sorry.
It's I want to say it's 10 years if there's no DNA. If there's DNA, it's like, there's no statute. The 10-year, I might be a little off on, but I believe it's about 10 years. Anybody else have anything?
Sure, I have a question. This might be a little off too. So when it comes to like the things that, the cartoons and the shows that children are watching, I don't have kids yet, when I watch the show with one of my cousins, I was just surprised. I watch cartoons, but I graduated 2002, I'm like, how, what are they doing to protect the kids from being exposed to these type of shows that are on nowadays? So we don't have these 10 to 14-year-olds doing some of the stuff they're doing based on the shows that they legally allow them to see. Because I'm confused right now. If somebody help.
Those were, in our day growing up, there was, we had Bugs Bunny for and that kind of thing. Or we would have concerts. And looking back, those were violent shows too, but they didn't portray what they're possible. Now we've got Family Guy that get out there pretty bad sometimes. And there's some other don't watch good commercials, and it's just show that deal with all. But ultimately, what you're asking, that's going to fall on parents. They have to monitor what. If
You
you're
have to
watching,
watch the show before you can have them watch it.
I'm sorry.
Don't have to watch the show before you can see that's something they can watch.
Right. It's not easy to be a parent.
I mean, I didn't ever in there, I don't have to do this, I didn't know what they're talking about. Take care, do your job at home,
Right.
until I actually watch shows on Netflix and stuff, I was just totally confused.
And there's, what we did when our kids were little was there's parental controls on there. So we would have it set, there's certain channels they can't ever get. There's certain shows that certain time frames they can watch. And after a certain time, because the rougher show starts coming on, they've got that time frame. If it's 8 o'clock, they can't get to that channel. So there's different little tools to help with that. Right, I don't know.
I'd like to know what we, as parents, and see what we need to do, because when I see what I saw, some of the stuff is actually rape and assault. I mean, that's just what it is. And I'm surprised that they haven't banned some of the shows that's allowing it to happen. That's why I asked you that, because I think it's a big issue.
Right, and I don't agree with those shows. But there's not a whole lot to do about it because it's legal. It's on TV. All we can do is not watch it. Tell our friends and neighbors to watch it. They have our same values. So
You need to, it's not even that though, it's the phones, right? So you really want to check kids,
right,
manage a phone.
Yeah.
phones are a
Phones are worse than TV.
Snapchat.
Phones are worse than TV.
YouTube,
they get a lot of stuff on their phones
manage a phone.
from their friends.
Oh, yeah.
It's
They can put fake apps on there that don't look like what they are.
It has been like,
Yeah.
it's very difficult nowadays. Technology helps, but it's also becoming. Any other questions about what we do or how things work? Thank you very much. Yep.
I have a question. You mentioned that a lot of the prostitution is happening with young age. So is there, I don't know, do schools do anything to, like, you're presenting data. Do high schools do anything to kind of educate or help? I'm assuming it's mostly girls. These young girls in high school.
That's not really a question for me.
Okay, I just didn't know. I didn't know if there was like an overall,
I
like
think they
program
have
that's
something.
somehow helping educate. It's just,
Yeah, that would be something that the
It
schools
depends
could
on the
help with.
campus, because I know that certainly at one of the Cypher campuses, one of the prom fundraisers for the Project Prom afterward was to do a self-defense class that you could sign up for at one of the local Taekwondo places. So it kind of all depends on the campus and what they're trying to offer.
Yes, ma'am.
I volunteer with Northwest Assistance Ministries. I have for over 20 years. And our family violence area has some programs like Dating with Respect and things like that, that they will go out to organizations And I know when I was doing the philanthropies for National Charity League, we had them come out and talk to our high school girls. So in that way, they did get some information
Right.
in that type of thing.
And I have gone out to a couple different high schools, one in Cy Fair and one out in Channel View, I think it was, but it's not something that's there all the time. It was, I was invited by specific teachers for a specific class. It was information for their class for that day. So there's a special program that would be with the individual school districts and the schools. It's not.
Yeah, so Shield Bearer also has a program like that. It's called Lindsay's Light. Lindsay was 19, 20-year-old girl that was involved in a dating violence situation, and she got killed by the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend. So we do offer those programs. If you're interested, they can come to the school and teach not only girls now, well, it's basically girls, but now it's also boys and girls, right? About what a healthy relationship looks like, what a not healthy relationship looks like, what are the red flags. So if any of you want some information, we can definitely share it with you.
And if you are involved in a school, to your question, the schools, in order for the, I mean, there's a lot of programs, we have many, and there's other organizations have it. The schools have to invite us. It's very difficult to get into the ISD. As Sergeant was mentioning, he's been invited by teachers. So, I mean, it's very difficult. So if you have an in, you know somebody, get some of these programs in there, because these kids need to be educated, and they need to know.
Don't make an assumption that
They need to know what grooming is.
Yeah.
They need, I mean, that's a huge, huge thing.
Don't make an assumption that it's just girls.
Yeah.
Target age for trafficking boys is 12 to 14, and it's all through video games.
Oh.
So don't make an assumption it's just girls.
And this is a lot like family violence. Our victims are both male and female. So it's not just sexual assaults on females. Males are definitely there as well. Any other questions? Thank you very much.